What if we all could live the life that Elon lives? I'm sick of this traffic. Why can't we tunnel under it? And 3 months later, he's raised billions of dollars.
What's fascinating about UAPs?
Well, what's not to like about it? It's like potential government conspiracy, the possibility that there is other life in the universe.
Part of what I'm doing when I subscribe to the Free Press or whoever I subscribe to on Substack is not just I'm like out of charity trying to help them. I'm exerting an influence in the world.
Kind of voting.
You're kind of voting. You're kind of displaying a costly signal that makes you a legitimate member of a community that you care to be part of. Today I spoke with Mark Pincus, the founder of Zynga, the groundbreaking social gaming company behind Farmville. We talked about politicians on social media, the future of the internet, Substack, UAPs, and more. Enjoy.
So, since the pandemic, I think we're all way more isolated and sort of trying to like reinvent how we do networking. And I've just discovered on Twitter, X, that I don't think we connected there. I think maybe I got connected through one of your investors.
Through Andrew Chen, I think.
Oh, Andrew Chen, yeah. But I've really had fun when I see someone making a cool product. I just like cold mail, or I just send them a DM, or I cold mail them. And if it's clearly, authentic and not like spammy, which they are, you get, really, I have like 100% response rate. And so it's great to just meet people. I reached out to the founder of, Polymarket.
Yeah, Shane.
Yeah, Shane. We haven't met yet, but, we're kind of both fans from afar.
Yeah,
and
I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, I'm teaching a class at Stanford CS this fall on product making, and I invited him to come. And you should come to one of them too. We filled up all of the slots for this fall. Like, it was interesting how I think all of us have an interest in giving back, teaching, sharing, and networking with like the next generation coming out of like Stanford CS or wherever. So I've been amazed how quickly that filled up, like at a really high response rate.
That's cool. And you get to talk to people who are at the forefront in that moment where a person who's like obsessed with building things finds that crack in the universe. I think Shane's that right now with Polymarket.
I do too.
Where it's like this thing that he's been crushing and crushing and crushing, and it's like the moment for it is like here right now.
Yeah, exactly.
In the maelstrom then.
Yeah, it's like I use the surfing analogy, a lot, that we can't make waves.
Right.
Even Mark Zuckerberg can't make a wave. He really tried with Oculus. Not for lack of trying. I mean, 10 billion a year or something, whatever number. We can only try to paddle in front of where we think there is a wave. And then maybe you can help be a catalyst for that wave to come earlier, or spot it, where others don't. But otherwise, it's humbling.
So where are you paddling right now? What are the waves that you're kind of like peering out at?
I have some very like long-term kind of instinct veins that go back pre-Zynga. One I blogged about in 2006, I called .earth. I said, I had to put it out there as a quick blog post before I was really tweeting a lot, that I would have put on Twitter now, or X. What do you call it? It's not tweeting. Everyone still says tweeting.
X posting, I guess. I just say tweeting. I've given up.
Okay. We need Elon to make up some better X post.
A flex. I don't know.
Yeah, we should name it. It's a Substack. But I put out this blog post saying that I wished that there was something, a new layer on top of HTTP, on top of the internet, that was a new form of like an open data transfer protocol that could enable rich interactive experiences to move around freely, to move the way we used to move HTML, clicking view source, edit, copy, paste.
Right. The early web was this era of open, like in retrospect, almost a limited era of wildly open.
Yeah, and then we briefly came back to the Web 2.0 where it was APIs, and we thought there'd be this web of open, accessible databases, all of my APIs, and then, Facebook and MySpace and all of those, from Flickr to Facebook, MySpace, it looked for a moment like it was going to be just API services. And then that didn't happen at the end user level. And then we saw it with Stripe, and we saw at the kind of middle layer, the APIs take off. But at the level of the last mile of building things for consumers, it went this other direction and became really closed. When that was starting to happen in like 2006, I came up with this vision I called .earth, and I said, what if in the future we can all live our lives at the speed of play, like life at the speed of play? And that's the name of the book I'm writing about product making. I call it Life at the Speed of Play. And the idea to me is like, what if we all could live the life that Elon lives? At least some of the part, maybe not all of it. Maybe everyone doesn't want 15, kids. But this idea of like, well, what if Elon can put up a tweet like, there should be a boring company. There should just be, I'm sick of this traffic. Why can't we tunnel under it? And 3 months later, he's raised billions of dollars. He can say he thinks there should be a different version of AI that's either safer or less rails. I'm confused which.
I don't know. Safer for other people, less rails for end.
Yeah. No, it's less rails for end users or for people messing with it. That's what I've seen so far. But safer for humanity. And then $6 billion later, he has that. So I'm not saying we will all have that kind of access to capital markets, but this idea, we're starting to get closer with AI. You can put up an AI prompt. I love Ethan Mollick, he's kind of at the cutting edge of AI prompting, and he just showed he could create a playable slice of Doom. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
They could run at 20 frames per second.
How does that work? Do you understand that?
Well, what he said is that the diffusion model is in real time, I believe real time, is estimating what the next frame should look like.
It's basically hallucinating an entire Doom.
Well, I don't know if it's hallucinating or accurately imagining.
It's not running the Doom engine.
No,
it's just remembering.
It's a game engine, and it's probably not in real time, but it's producing each frame and then putting them together.
That's so insane.
And so a little bit of the AI and prompting, we're starting to get to a bit of, and this vision I had for Life at the Speed of Play was that, and still is, I'll say, I'm being really abstract. There's 3 foundational elements, and all of this ended up being the foundations for what I was really trying to build at Zynga. The first is making the virtual real. And that's what gives adults permission to play. This idea, right now, like, you can gamble for real money and it's okay, but if your friend said they were going to Vegas for the weekend and they were going to go to like a bingo parlor, or they were going to, like, they found a casino that just has points and no real money, it would just sound a little weird. Right. Or even you have a poker night with friends, it's usually there's some stakes. It's $20 or $100. It's not, just points or free. You want to feel in games and in life, we want to feel like we're making decisions that matter, and they have some cause and effect consequence. And the more that they have a consequence in our real lives, the more adrenaline there's around. So the first foundation was this making the virtual real. The second, people call UGC, I called it invest, express, and connect. And that was like Farmville. Like, you could create a different farm or decorate it differently, and your friends saw it, and so there was some feedback loop, kind of like we have on social media today, pictures of your kids. And then the third was persistence, and people kind of underestimate the importance, I think, to all of us, of persistence. And in Farmville, your farm was always there when you weren't, or at least that was what you believed, or your friends saw it. Things happened, felt like things happened, So this idea of an MMO or virtual world. So those are these building blocks of this Life at the Speed of Play. It really starts to sound like the metaverse.
Yeah.
This vision, right? Blurring the lines between digital and analog, online, offline. But where it goes beyond just what we're starting to think about with AI is, what if I could put out an idea for a new product or something I would like to see in the world, and what if the cloud auto-magically connected me, gave me leads. So it was a marketplace. It almost happens a little bit on Twitter. People put up like, hey, I'm trying to hire an engineer, or I'm going to be in New York. And you're putting it out. You're kind of trying to get leads back. What if it was a lot smarter in the way that connected us? Imagine, not hard to imagine where we're going to be with agents in the next year, right? That you could create an agent and says, hey, I'm looking to hire these kinds of engineers. And if you have leads, you know them. And it could go a few steps beyond LinkedIn. And without bothering me, I could have an agent that's like, hey, here's access to my LinkedIn, and
I'm already getting recruiting emails from
agents, right? But that's kind of bad lead gen, right? Because it's a lot of noise to signal. But what if it got to where we were with Napster in 1999? That was a matrix moment for me. And what I got the first time I was on Napster, there's 4.5 million computers connected to you. You can type in a music file name, Madonna Like a Virgin was the first one I typed in, embarrassingly. And it said, there's 15,000 versions of that song.
15,000 results per version.
Yes, for Virgin. This actually, even that song, it was even more interesting for, Grateful Dead songs, because they were recorded live at tons of different shows, so that became interesting. Without bothering the owner of that file, right? That was a way that our computers were talking to each other directly and finding something. That those were files on our computers. There's something there that I feel like we're going to get back to and kind of reinvent that in a better way, because when the agent gets better and more sophisticated at understanding your relationships, like an intelligent social membrane that starts to make better discernment of who you would recommend and who you would share that recommendation with, whether it's a restaurant or a former employee or an answer to a hard problem that or something. I feel like these agents are going to start to be able to broker and share things of greater and greater value. And then you get to the end point. For me, life is speed of play. Putting it all together, there's two endpoints for me that I'll try to describe to you more clearly as a user experience. The first endpoint is just imagine something that's like as easy and intuitive as Minecraft, but as powerful inside as Shopify. Right. So imagine an experience where you're looking at something very graphical, could be interactive, a store, and maybe it's part game and part not. And there's a simulation ground, but it's also a real store, and you can buy real virtual goods or real life goods, and you think it's done really well. And you're like, I'd like to do something like that. You right click on it, you capture whatever you want of it, the whole store, the cash register, and you edit, copy, paste over to your space, and now you turn it into something totally different. And you just, within minutes, just construct possibly a real e-commerce store and experience. And maybe when you grab that cash register, it includes customer support service from an at-home mom in India who just created that as an API service. This was kind of the Web 2.0 concept, but taken further. But now people talk about no-code, UGC. Sure, that's a piece of it. But what's interesting to me is an experience, maybe it starts in games, and games start to add bits of e-commerce and bits of personalization, customization, hosting. But it gets to this point that really unlocks a whole new generation of kind of entrepreneurs and business types. And that's one. The other example is putting something out, maybe in text, that I put out and gets brokered through a lot of agents that does kind of what LinkedIn does. It's through whether it's social connections to know if it's okay to share, but comes back to me with, here's a whole group of other people that are working on what you're working on, interested in it, want to work with you on this, but bring me back really good leads through all of these agents.
It's almost like online is real life, and those things are coming from both sides. On the one hand, there's already games that have big real world economies about people who are, buying and selling things in the game and having persistent social groups that they care about or that feel like a major part of their life. Mm-hmm. And then the other side, the thing you mentioned is like, if I do a tweet and then start a company that is building some piece of software that people are using online. One way you could look at that is kind of like, that's sort of an online game that I'm playing. Like from my cat's perspective.
Yeah.
I go to the computer, I type into the thing, I talk to some friends, I do this, whatever it is, and, you know, I make money, I make something that other people care about. The difference between those things over time can and should blur in this.
One of the first things I think I said to you that I was so intrigued around Substack is I think that we're all creating mini cocktail parties.
Yeah.
And if you do it well, the right people for each other are attracted to hang out there or hang out in little mini cocktail parties. And they start wanting to hang out there. I think right now, a lot of people are hanging out on Twitter. It feels more timely and relevant given the whole political and everything else that's going on. It's a very kind of news intensive time than hanging out on Instagram where we were when we were sharing maybe during the pandemic, more photo-based experiences around our families or, you know, things we won't be able to share in person. And now I feel that, for me, I feel like that cocktail party has moved more to Twitter and Substack. But then I think this, for me, these big veins are like the cocktail party and the life at the speed of play. And how do they start to interact? And even, how can I speed it up, get more leverage out of it? But partly for fun, but also for the other things you get out of a cocktail party, good leads, good knowledge and information. And I'm wanting the Substack thing to move a little faster for me too. Like I've subscribed to enough Substacks. I know every day I'm feeling dumber and dumber because I get these emails of people's posts and I don't feel the time in my life to read them. And so now I'm like, okay, I need an agent to read my Substacks for me. I know there is one, and summarize them for me and give me the TLDR and even be smarter and not just do that, but say, Mark, you know, like, and one of my things I'm interested in is UAPs. So I follow Avi Loeb. His titles.
Can you tell us what UAPs are for the uninitiated?
Yes, they are the new government name for UFOs, and I believe it stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, which sounds much more normal and okay than UFOs, which the government, I think...
There's a euphemism for treadmill going on, or an acronym treadmill or something.
Yes. The new acronym makes it more current and normal and okay. I will admit that I am open to the possibility that that UAPs represent at least some potential leap in our understanding of physics. So I also got interested last year in black holes. So my partner and I but at the same time, both started getting really interested in black holes. And we're like, wow, this has been here all this time, and there's so much physics and theoretical physics and research and interesting things around this, and we've never really paid attention. Modern physics cannot explain black holes. That's interesting to me. It made me start thinking, what if we are on the verge of breaking our modern rules of physics to move atoms faster than the speed of light?
Right, which according to our best understanding is impossible to the point of not making sense.
Right.
But to your point, if our current understanding was broken, maybe that...
Yeah, because I think we move at 1/100,000th of the speed of light right now. I'm not any expert in physics, but so I could be wrong. So it's like 100,000 times what we think, you know, we can move at today. So then I'm like, well, how would we get to this breakthrough? And then started learning more about some of the weird unanswered things around UAPs. Obviously, there's more and more things from the military, or people claiming, seeing a lot of things. There's people like Avi Loeb from Harvard who claims that he's unearthed at least fragments and elements that are outside our galaxy. And so at a minimum, it seems like there's a science of just researching materials and things that might unlock new things for us because they're from potentially outside our galaxy. That sounds pretty grounded and real. Then you go further and further out, depending on what you believe, and The next is people believe maybe these UAPs are advanced military technology that we are not yet aware of. I have trouble believing that because I think the government's so bad at keeping secrets. So it's hard to believe that programs have gone on and that there are, in the last summer when there were the unexplained balloons coming over our country from Chinese which China never admitted, but we think they're Chinese balloons. I also think it's weird that we didn't just immediately shoot them down. But so there's something weird there. That's kind of a next level of understanding of thinking about UAPs.
Why do you think this stuff draws you in so much? What's fascinating about UAPs?
Well, what's not to like about it? It's like potential government conspiracy, the possibility that there is other life in the universe, the possibility that a lot of these crazy stories we've heard from people for years could be true. And I'm kind of an eternal optimist. And I always think every era in the history of mankind, we always think we're in the modern era, and we think there's nothing
else to discuss.
No, we think it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
We are at the peak, and the last 100 years were the best, and it's going to just, right now is as good as it's going to get, and all we hear in the media is kind of negative, and history always proves it wrong. In the short term, there are wars and famines and bad things, but over a longer period of 100-year increments, it's amazing how much better it gets. And I am 100% confident that's going to remain true for the next 100 years and 1,000 years. But how is that going to happen? It's not going to happen by itself. It happens through discoveries and asking questions and curiosity. And so I'm interested in whether it's just elements that have come from another galaxy, whether it is other life, whether it is technologies that's been discovered in parts of us. I believe something in this has a good chance of leading to a massive increment, a massive jump, not incremental, in our understanding of physics and technology. And it's fun. I'm drawn to it. And then the next level, I'll say beyond even think, is this a government thing? Explainable. The next is this life from other planets or probes, is what a lot of people seem to think that have been sent here. And then beyond that is people who believe that there is a higher alien consciousness that is that's guiding us, that won't let us fire nuclear weapons, that come into people's dreams and give them downloads. So there's, depending on how far you want to go with it.
And then if you're thinking about this not metaverse, but life at the speed of play, internet becoming real, the way these might connect is there's a set of people who have become fascinated by this, who are digging into it seriously, despite everyone else thinking, oh, the UFO, whatever, and having some place where they can gather, build that thing together. Is there a connection?
Well, there's an easy one, which is the cocktail party, right? And I think Substack starts to do that. So you get Pippa Malgren, Avi Loeb, the way it's been happening, with BBSs that became blogs, kind of easier, faster, and as a Substack around a host who's putting out interesting content, it attracts people who are interested in community forums, and they start to network and connect with each other. So there's a very kind of tried and true internet way that communities and little cocktail parties happen. It's not new technology. I mean, I think whether it's Substack or someone else starts to experiment and create, I think the next level for me will be these AI-based agents that are like smart membranes, that are like the chief of staff that really, really gets to know you and your relationships and orbits and brokers those relationships with other people so that it can connect you much more quickly to people where on both sides you really want to be connected.
Right. At the same time, filter out stuff that you're not.
And not bring in the false positives could be really painful and, they're bad in dating, they're bad in job seeking, they're even worse around really letting someone into your personal membrane. And if that got, hacked, that could be, that the trust level there is so high that you need lots of kind of layers and redundancies where probably it's asking you, it's like, I think this is kind of like you might do with someone's chief of staff, but it might need to really check in with you and say, on both sides, and say, hey, I think this is someone you'd like to talk to. Am I right? And you're like, yes. And then it goes and talks to the other one. But one of the great things, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this the last year and a half. One of the, I think that's things that's better than real life is the ability, machines don't have feelings that get hurt. We do. So let's say that I rated you in terms of my interest in hanging out and really going deeper. I rated you a 7. I'm just kidding. Oh, let's say you rated me a 5. But we don't know that. But our membranes, these agents do know that. And now they're kind of negotiating for us. And like, well, this is more important to Mark than Scott. There's these asymmetries that always happen. And then how do we manage the asymmetries in a way that doesn't hurt relationships and hurt people's feelings? I think there's a lot of interesting space for the machines to do that in ways that do a way better job of brokering.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Can I run my biggest product problem by you?
Yeah, I'd love that.
Because I think there might, and it's a big diffuse thing. This is not like what should I do on this screen? This is kind of like a amorphous, ambiguous thing that I'm wrestling with right now that ties into a couple of things you said. So we've been building Substack. We've always thought of Substack at its root as an economic engine, right? Everything that we build, the tools we build are in search. We started out with like, you're a writer, you can publish an email newsletter and make money from subscriptions. Right. None of those technologies are particular, like sending email, collecting payments, hosting a website.
Right.
None of those things are groundbreaking innovations, but the model of putting them together, building a social contract where you could go on the internet and ask people to pay for the thing you're doing.
And why is that different than what Medium has been trying to do?
The Medium cycled through a whole bunch of different possible economic models. I'm from the outside here. I'm like, Medium knew they wanted to make a thing with reading and writing, and we're kind of like, we'll figure out in classic that era of the internet. They're like, we'll figure out the business model as we go. If we get the eyeballs, the rest will click into place. They cycled through a bunch of things. The one thing the thing that worked in my view for Substack is privileging the relationships between people above everything else. And so on Substack, you don't subscribe to Substack. You subscribe to or whoever it is. And it turns out that if you look at that from like
is that like a fan, super fan kind of model?
It's part of the fan, super fan kind of model. I think you do want, people that have a cult following for some reason.
Yeah.
And part of it might be, I just want to support this thing in the world. Part of it might be, I trust this person to help curate a slice of my attention. Like I delegate. I'm going to say this person, not only am I interested in them, they have the right to like reach out to me and send me emails. And I want to know when they're sending me something, and they're going to put me onto things that are interesting. And it's partly, I think, related to something that you said, which is the fact that there's money involved makes it more real.
Yeah.
It makes it more real life.
Yeah.
When I'm paying for this thing, the other people at this cocktail party care enough about this thing to have paid for it.
Right.
I'm freeing up this person who I trust and care about. There's people on Substack making many millions of dollars a year, right? Yeah. It starts to become...
like the free press, right? Is it really successful?
Fantastically successful. They're building an entire new media company that I think is already rivaling in quality and will rival in scale and influence.
Yeah.
All of the big ones. There's also individual people who are doing this. There's people who are like, Heather Cox Richardson is a history professor who basically does a thing by himself and has a massive following. And I think the economic engine piece of that is the novel thing about Substack. It's the fact that we are playing a different game together, and the fact that it involves money, the fact that it's, people have this skin in the game, and as a creator, as a writer, the bargain is so clear.
Yeah.
Right. But like, hey, you're gonna own your work.
Yeah.
You're going to have a direct relationship with your audience. But like you can leave Substack and take your list with you. Like that's part of it. Like we can't,
And what do you charge?
So the way we charge is we take a cut. So if you're just publishing, if you come to Substack and you say, hey, I just want to send emails,
free.
Totally free.
Right.
Any size audience, any number of emails. And then once you start charging, we take a 10% fee.
Okay.
And then our goal is always to like get you more subscriptions. And so if you're a writer,
does that fee go down at some volume level?
the fee does not go down at some volume level. And we made that choice deliberately. So when we started out, we were kind of a tool where we said, hey, it's all this stuff. For people who are just getting started, it's a great deal. They're like, oh, it's totally free. And then I do it. And then at some point, people, as I say, started to make millions of dollars a year. And they say, wait a minute.
Were you going to lose Barry Weiss at some point?
I think ideally not, right?
It's definitely ideal not.
And here's I think there's two pieces to that. The first is just like, hey, do the economics of this make sense? When I'm making millions or tens of millions of dollars a year, can this thing be valuable? That put the right pressure on us, where the answer was, if we're just a tool that lets you send emails, it cannot make sense. However, if what we are, part of what Substack is a network, where you're getting value from it in terms of growth, in terms of, actually pulling people in, then the answer can be yes. So we built the Substack network, which started with recommendations. So if you subscribe to somebody, it might say, hey, they recommend these other people. There's other services now. There's the Substack app. There's onboarding, all kinds of places. And right now, across the network, about half of new free subscriptions come from Substack, and I think close to a third of paid. So if you're somebody who's, even if you're very large, you're making millions of dollars a year, you say, okay, well, I'm paying Substack 10% of that. That's a lot. On the other hand, 10, 20, 30% of my new paid subscriptions are coming from this network that I'm a part of. That math starts to pencil out to the point where you say, even if I could switch away from this and everything was totally free and had no hassles, it doesn't make basic economic sense to me.
And what about, I think you had a question there, but even before you get to that, have you, I guess this would be up to the publisher, but have you thought about whale products? Is there a product, a subscription offering, that someone would value at $100 a month?
We've done a little bit of this, and all of the little bit we've done has been signal that we should do more. So the one thing we did for this was we introduced the concept of a founding membership. So you could basically have, there's a monthly price, there's a yearly price, and then by default, there's like a founding price that is kind of 5 times as much, and it's only yearly.
Yeah. And
the basic deal of it right now is like, it's not, you don't necessarily get anything for it. Right. It's kind of just like the writer's going to know that you're founding. Right. The option to have that group now of people who have done this thing, you get a little badge that says, I'm a founding person.
Yeah.
And that thing has been actually spectacularly successful.
Yeah.
With what if we had a way to pay more? That worked very well. Right. It's been like a substantial lift. I think there's we could go really deep on that. We've done a little bit of experimentation with like personal stuff. Like I can meet with, can I pay to get a meeting? Can I pay to talk? Can I do more?
It feels too much, the one-to-one, but I'm curious, if you get to a point where, like with Barry and the Free Press, does she get to a point where if you're in the founders circle or this whatever premium sponsor, there's there's Zooms that you could be on with the other members and the writer of that story. So now Ferguson puts out a really interesting story, and if a few days later there's a Zoom just for the premium members to go deeper. I don't know, but
I think there's a long road. I think there's a long road for that stuff. We've started down the road. There's a lot further to go. I think the things where you get a premium thing, it's like, hey, I can be on the Zoom. Hey, I can be in the founders group chat. That stuff all really matters. I also think the status part of it really matters to people too. And there's almost a funny economic theory in here where you could turn if you successfully create a status game around it.
Oh yeah,
you could create kind of like opt-in progressive taxation to fund arts and culture, where if it's like, the amount I pay for the Free Press becomes, how much do I actually love the Free Press multiplied by how rich am I? And whatever that is, I'm just going to volunteer to pay it because I get membership in this, what I see as my real life community of something that I deeply care about, the closer we can like approximate that, I feel like it unlocks this tremendous sort of creative ferment of funding these things.
Yeah. Wait, you said you had a question in there.
All right. So here's my question. So the pitch to the writers, the creators is very clear.
Right.
It is, you're going to own your work. You're going to own your connection to your audience. You're going to actually be able to make a ton of money potentially and not just make money, but make money doing the thing you actually believe in, making the thing that I think is actually valuable. I'm not trying to like get 1 million people to click on this so I can sell a Google ad. I'm trying to make something that people...
And arguably, you're kind of giving it away for free on X/Twitter, because I know they have a program, if you get enough views, they start to give you an ad rev share. But if you're putting a lot of time into really long-form posts there, you might as well do a Substack.
Yeah, and you can put stuff out for free. You can
as a way to draw people in.
As a way to draw people in, and as people want to have impact, people want to be read. You get to a point though where you start to like the effort for, there's people on Substack who get pitched to like go write for magazines or do other things, and they kind of like, if I put this on my Substack, I'm going to make like tens of thousands of dollars. It's really hard to like get out of that thing. Okay, so the pitch to the creators is very clear, and the pitch to the audience, I think, is that in order for that whole thing to work, the pitch to the audience also has to work, right? If it was just like, hey, whatever, you could publish this thing and people could pay, but nobody cares and nobody pays, the world doesn't turn.
Right.
And when we started Substack, this was the thing that nobody believed, right? I would tell people the story of like, hey, we're going to make this economic engine culture, and people are going to pay for it right there. And I would be like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Right.
Obviously, no one's going to pay for that.
Right.
I'm sorry, I can't believe you don't know this, but I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you. Like, people don't pay for things on the internet.
Like, have you seen Medium?
Dummy, have you seen Medium? Like, Medium's just doing this.
Yeah.
And I had like a parlor trick where I would say, okay, well, who's your favorite writer? And they'd say, well, it's so-and-so. Like, would you pay $5 a month for so-and-so? And they'd say, well, yeah. But that's kind of the
Patreon model, right? It's like, I'll pay because I really believe in them.
And this is my question. There's a set of things that people will pay for. It's a revealed preference. It does happen. People absolutely pay for stuff. And it is a combination of, in my view, it is a combination of patronage. I want to be someone who supports this thing.
Yeah.
It's a combination of, there's stuff that I want, right? There's like, you put these together. It's like, hey, I want to support this thing. And then one day there's a thing that they publish that I really want to read that helps get me off paywall to do it. Like, I hit the paywall. The paywall, I'm not like, it's not purely transactional. It's not like I want to pay just for this thing, but it's like, you give me an excuse to do the thing.
Yeah.
I think both of those things connect to a deeper motivation. That's the reason that any of this works in the first place. That it's a little, I want to put my finger on it more clearly than I have.
Yeah.
Because I think it'll help us talk about the thing, build the thing. And I think another thing that you said is the fact that it's real money means that I'm participating in real life.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes it real.
Yeah.
Part of what I'm doing when I subscribe to the Free Press or whoever I subscribe to on Substack is not just I'm like out of charity trying to help them. I'm exerting an influence in the world.
You're kind of voting.
You're kind of voting. You're kind of displaying a costly signal that makes you a legitimate member of a community that you care to be part of, in a way that the value of what you get from that is worth to you the thing that you're paying. Maybe the thing that I'm saying is the fact that people do this and it's valuable has run ahead to me of our ability to like completely understand and talk about it. Yeah. And I think it's starting to hurt. It's starting, like, our own clarity of thinking of it is important for, like, how do we make the product coherent?
Right.
How do we talk about it to people?
Yeah.
An example of this, you've used the stuff like that. We've had this sudden flurry where some of the central places on Substack where I can come and hang out and see the various people I subscribe to in dialogue with each other and discover new things, and kind of like that universe. We've been trying a bunch of stuff for years and years and years and years. Within the past year, it's like started to work. Yeah. People are coming back. I'm a super addicted to the Substack app. I'm in there all the time. Sure. But I'm not the only one. There's a bunch of people. The DAE number going up. I think objectively right now, when I look at the app, when I try to talk about the app to people, it's a bit confused.
Right.
It's like, you've used it, right? You go to it, there's my subscriptions, there's feed, there's like,
you need to know what to promote to me the most, or what's the center.
I'm trying to, what's the central story of Substack to the audience? It's ridiculous that I'm asking you this, by the way, but I think you have ideas.
Yeah, no, it feels like it feels like right now there isn't one answer. It sounds like, and feels like there's multiple answers.
I feel like we're like the blind man in the elephant mode, where it's like, yeah, there's a trunk over here, there's a foot over here. They are actually part of the same story.
Or you could go deeper on any one of them, and it would kind of move you more that way. So you're adjacent to a lot of things. So one thing that's in an adjacency that's different, doesn't exist at the moment, is I've started to wonder about, and I'm not alone probably, but I've started to think about, we've been on this progression in terms of the way that we consume news. And we've gone from my parents sitting there reading a paper, and there was like the 5 o'clock news or 6 o'clock news on TV, on 3 networks, right? CNN said, no, they can have news all the time, right? 24-hour news, which really wasn't 24 hours of news gathering or news discussion. It might be 6 hours of live commentary.
You can get it 24 hours.
But you can watch it 24 hours, okay, where we couldn't before. And obviously on the internet now we can watch anything. But I feel like CNN was more real time and immediate than the evening news. Because it's like, we're going to have someone in a news center live talking all the time about things that are going on. And now there's something that is more immediate and more real time happening on Twitter, right? So if something's happening, I check Twitter first for my news, and I usually find by the time it's in the New York Times or often on CNN, I've already consumed it, heard perspectives on it, seen different versions of it, sides of it. Sometimes the news was a clip that came from CNN or something that happened on CNN, but it still happens on Twitter, not on CNN. And anyway, what I've started to wonder about is why it just seems like a very small step from there. It's kind of, there was a Ted Turner moment in cable TV. Ted Turner said, he did CNN, but said, I'm going to put, I don't know, $100 million into creating one cable network, which seemed crazy at the time. I mean, and he then created a whole bunch of cable channels, but he raised huge amounts of money and bet on this idea that people would like kind of multiplexed channels. I just wonder, is there a Ted Turner moment coming up again where we're going to get to live, always on news, but news channels? Maybe they're nested on a Twitter X, like kind of like we see with Spaces, but instead of Spaces being this ad hoc thing, and I'm getting to why this relates to you, but there's times when it matters more than others, and during election cycles, and there's things coming out, and people are trying to process those during the wars and conflicts. You're trying to parse out what's real and not real, and blah, blah, blah. But is there, when you want to tune in right now to a particular point of news, would you be more likely to tune in if there was something approaching CNN production or quality of commentator and whatever, but real-time commenting on whatever the important topic is right now on Twitter and live? Would that start to draw a bigger audience because it was more up to the minute than what I'm getting on CNN? I did a live, I don't know what you call it, but a live feed or something with Barry. I wrote a post for the Free Press, and then we did a live, what do you call it, live webcast while the RNC was going on to talk about my post. And we were little boxes, and then there was Hulk Hogan, And we were talking while it was going on in the background, and I was able to say, oh my God, it's Hulk Hogan. Can we stop and watch him? He's more interesting. And then he came on and he tore off his shirt. And then we came back and I took my shirt off, but being the lame tech nerdy guy, I unbuttoned it. I didn't rip it off. But it was fun. And then I found out afterwards we had like 200,000 viewers. But I was like, this is kind of cool. Like that she can go grab anyone she wants, basically pull them on, have some other feed of things going on, be talking about almost like Twitch, like the way Twitch does for games and there's something there that I got out of that. I was like, wow.
Live feels different, right? That felt different than this. We might have a lot of people that watch this later.
Right, and it's different, and there's a reason, and I'm going to relate this to one other weird random thing, and I know I'm being really long form to get to this, but the other thing is, the other time I want live is in my car, and I could like research and look up podcasts, and I do, but they're never going to be as interesting to me as wanting to like tune in live. And so the only option I have is NPR. Now maybe if I really spent the time with Sirius Satellite, I could find some other, and sometimes listen to Politico, but usually that's actually a podcast. But the only thing I have for really like, live coverage from Washington, NPR, and it's okay, and I like it sometimes, and other times I don't. But it's my one option, and I'm kind of captive. I'm like, why couldn't someone create an alternative to NPR, live news coverage, kind of on Twitter all the time, but also radio to your car or podcasted to your car live, however that works? Why couldn't Tesla even download these and be like, here's a bunch of Tesla live channels that they have a good relationship with Twitter? So anyway, it relates to Substack for me, which is there another direction for you guys to go where you start to help your more popular Substacks start to be webcasts and even more live, and even why not experiment with putting them on Twitter? And, does that start to broaden their audience and yours? And you could still even have a paid model with it. Here's our free webcast, and then there's another one that is exclusive to our paying members. I mean, that's just a thought.
I think it's a great
adjacency.
I think it's a great idea. We are experimenting now with live, and I think the world of live gets very interesting when you add in all of the video AI tools. We have a thing right now where, and this is now.
About doing it, I think that it's so much easier if you make it like Twitch. Like there was something about just having the RNC running in the background, and we're boxes and can talk about it.
Talking about something. It's like, hey, let's look at this together. We can talk, we could not talk.
Like,
I just show you something.
How funny would it be if you and make it really easy and ghetto? Like what if you just gave me feeds that I could pick, and I chose CNN, and while CNN is interviewing people and having or the Sunday talk shows, while I have my own Sunday talk show. Like, you know what this is like? I used to work in cable TV for John Malone at Liberty and TCI before there was internet. I was in new media, which was the flake department then. No one thought it would ever make any money. And when they announced 500 channels, my job was actually to try to come up with some of the channels. And one of the ones that we helped fund was E! Entertainment. And the first hit show they had was called Talk Soup. It was actually Greg Kinnear's first job. I think he was paid like minimum scale. It was one camera. We produced it for $1,500 an hour, which is insanely cheap. I mean, at the time, ESPN was $100,000 an hour. And all they did was they would take all the talk shows from that week, edit them to clips, and then you could watch Talk Soup, and Greg Kinnear would show them and comment on them. And it was almost like an early version of what I'm talking about. Like, what if there were all these live feeds? You have my version of the Sunday talk shows. I'm like, do you want to hear Mark's spin on the Sunday talk shows?
Yeah.
I'm going to have them on in the background, and I'm going to let them talk, and I'm going to stop them, and then I'm going to talk about, like, who I think's full of shit.
And you could re-live it. The same way you could retweet something, you could, like, go
re-live it, and I could do it while it's live, and you could watch it later.
Course of it, yeah.
Yeah. But it's almost like Twitch meets CNN, literally,
and you make it super easy and accessible. So rather than
and they don't have to be news either, right? You could do it around any topic you want. But it's like kind of want to watch video and maybe I want to listen, as a podcast, but the idea that now anyone can take any of this, whatever you're allowed to use, I don't know what the rights work like, but the way they do with games, you start to use all of this live. I could take podcasts, like I could have Mark's take on All In, and I like have All In, and they're talking, and I stop it, and I'm like, oh, Chamath's full of shit, or. But yeah, I think I don't know. It sounds a little more fun and interesting to me and new than just. It's a little too cerebral. Like I said in the beginning, I don't feel like I don't have time or like I'm not bandwidth or smart enough to read all the Substacks that come in my email inbox. And I need help on that. But then I also would be more drawn to something, I don't know, that was a little easier to consume, like video and audio.
Definitely. Well, I feel like I could pick your brain for hours, but I want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything? Are you going to start a Substack? Should we plug your Substack here? What should we plug for you?
I want to. I aspire to start a Substack. I worry about once you start something and have some cadence, people might have expectations. Like I could see myself post. Like actually, I'll admit I wrote a Substack piece to post about Snap, about why I think about broken internet stocks. The other problem is I have each topic bled into 3 other topics. Started writing about why I think Snap is misunderstood and undervalued as a stock. That led me to I have this whole thesis about broken internet stocks. These amazing services like Spotify was there. Like less than a year ago, you could have bought Spotify for below their IPO price.
What?
Like $90 a share. They went public for $95. Now they're at $300 or something. But there's these moments where you can buy these what I call broken internet stocks, and that's what Zynga was, and that's what Snap has become. And Snap, while I was writing the post, they were at $17 a share, and now they're back to $9.50 a share. So it's not as much of a victory lap now. Now it's here's why you should back up the truck on Snap, but it's not why I was right. But I want to do a Substack.
Well, we'll link to your Substack. People can subscribe.
Yeah.
Don't expect anything regular. This is no promises.
It'll be sporadic. Yeah, I will post some. I think I got to get more comfortable of just where it's if I felt like it was 3 to 5x of a tweet, I'm doing a tweet in 30 seconds or a few minutes. If it was oh, I have this thought, I'm going to take
you can post from your phone now, finally. You can do the quick post from your phone.
I like that. Okay. I used to do really long blog posts from my BlackBerry.
Nice. But you could look away and just touch type on that.
Yeah, I could. Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah. All right. I'll get it going. This is a good prompt.
Anything else people should look up for you?
I would just say, anyone listening, if any of these ideas and veins I talked about, from this big, for me, life at the speed of play, to any of the kind of sub veins, start my own different from Substack. I call it sub veins. It's weird. Maybe veins weird. But if people connect with any of them, they could pitch me, come back and share your ideas. Or anyway, this is a very, we don't have life at the speed of play yet, but the life at the speed of life right now happens for me on Twitter. So you can go to @MarkPinc, MarkPinc, and post something, and I'll likely see it.
Amazing.
And respond.
Mark Pincus, thank you very much.
Yeah, this is fun.